Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. For today's Depth December deck, we are going back to a deck that I used to play a fair bit about a year ago, and that's a deck that I call Helm's Deep. The reason for that is it's a Helm combo deck and a Dark Depths combo deck. So there's been quite a lot of cards printed since the last time I played this, and we've made some upgrades and changes based on the meta, and I'm liking the spot we're in a little bit more now. So we have the Dark Depths combo with either Hexmage or Thespian stage to make a 20/20. Then we have any of these 8 graveyard removing effects plus Helm of Obedience will strip our opponent's entire library. So that's our other combo. And Ill-Gotten Gains, if we have one of these graveyard hoses out, the Ill-Gotten Gains will mind twist our opponent and let us draw 3 cards from our graveyard. So that's pretty strong. We also have 4 Chalice of the Void, but that's part of our wider prison package. So when we're not doing our combo stuff, the other things we have going is a bunch of the good black stuff. So we've got Chalice of the Void to get rid of 1-drops, which is quite essential in a world of Swords to Plowshares and we're trying to win with a 20/20. We've got Orcish Bowmasters to kind of suppress our opponent's ability to draw cards. Opposition Agent to suppress our opponent's ability to search their library. And Sheoldred for more suppression of cards as well as just smashing the game up in a very quick fashion. So when we haven't got our combo assembled, or one of our combos assembled, we have a pretty strong like prison-y plan here. We're locking out the graveyard, we're locking out 1-drops, and we're locking out their ability to draw extra cards or search their library. That's quite a lot to drop out. Now, in order to include these things, we have had to lose the Dark Ritual we were playing. Obviously, it sometimes felt like a bit of a nombo with the Chalice of the Void, but such is life. I think it's probably worth making that cut. Well, we're going to find out, right? So the Dark Depths, when we don't have our combo, when we don't have a piece to go with it, is not going to do a lot unless we have an Urborg. So we are susceptible to drawing hands with Dark Depths where it doesn't do anything. Same with Helm of Obedience. But then all the graveyard stuff does have some utility still. And obviously Hexmage has some utility. You can kill Planeswalkers or whatever. So even though we are an A plus B, some of our A's are actually not that bad on their own. So there is that. A concern I do have with this deck is the amount of colorless lands. Now, obviously, we're counting Dark Depths as a spell for the most of the time. So we're a 24 land deck, including our Ancient Tombs, with 4 Dark Depths and spell slots. But sometimes they turn into lands if we have the Urborg. So we might be putting a little bit too much pressure on the Urborg. We might also be putting a lot of pressure on in terms of having 4 Urborg. So maybe we're supposed to have -1 Urborg, -1 stage, +2 swamps. That's certainly something I thought about. Alternatively, we could have some Chromoxes, so we have 6 ways of making a turn 1 Chalice. So that's a thought. Obviously, the Ancient Tomb is good with the stage and depths, but it can also power out a Helm, a Leyline, Ill-Gotten Gains, Oppo Agent, Sheoldred, and obviously the Chalice. So it's got some useful text there. But that's the deck. I definitely think there's going to be some changes I recommend at the end of this video, but I just want to try it with these changes because it's a massive overhaul from the previous build we played. So I want to see how it fares. Sideboard-wise, we got little creatures covered, we got big creatures and planeswalkers covered. We got some more hand disruption for combo decks, although we've already got quite a few tools that are helpful against combo decks, but a bit more doesn't hurt. And then we have a new card, Court of Locthwain. It's pretty new. So when this enters the battlefield, it's an enchantment, we gain the Monarch. So drawing a card, pretty good, especially in these grindy games. Then we have, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your opponent's library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may use mana of any type to cast it. So we can use our black and colorless mana to cast it. If you're the Monarch, until end of turn, you may cast a spell from among the cards exiled with Court of Locthwain without paying its mana cost. So we could hit something ridiculous like an Emrakul and just go, okay, we get to win the game with that now. So this is a pretty interesting one. Previously, I've played Court of Ambition in this slot, which is up here. This is the one we used to play. So this one, instead of drawing us an additional card every turn on top of the Monarch, this one just gives your opponent a Punisher choice of either discarding 1 or 2 cards and losing 3 or 6 life, depending on if we have the Monarch or not, which isn't amazing. Like, it can strip out our opponent's resources, but if we're doing these prison-y things, they're probably going to have spare cards that they can't cast anyway. So I don't think that's great. Whereas I've seen a few people talking about this, and I wanted to try it myself. And what better place to play new cards? All right, so that is the deck. We are playing a bit of Helm's Deep. So let's go to battle at Helm's Deep with our orcs and have a lovely time. If you want to help the channel out, by all means, like and subscribe. It does help. And if you know anyone who's interested in Legacy, wants to see some more Legacy content, send them my way, especially if they're 2020 enthusiasts. Alright, let's jam some Helm's Deep. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? We are on the play. We can shut some stuff off, but our hand doesn't really go anywhere. I think we can do better than this. This is the same hand, but we have a turn 1 Chalice on the play. This is one of our combo pieces. This is one of our combo pieces. I think we're going to keep this and get rid of a stage. Our deck is built so we can get free wins with prison pieces every now and then. So we may as well play into that. And we only need to draw either a Helm or a Dark Depths. And then we have our A combo online to win the game with. And our opponent isn't going to be able to cast very much on turn 1. Wasteland. Sure, you can Wasteland our Ancient Tomb. Sure, that means they're not casting anything on their second turn either. Ill-Gotten Gains. I do like the Ill-Gotten Gains here. I think we'll play out a Swamp though. We're looking to try and hit another Swamp so we can get this Ill-Gotten Gains off. A Vampire Hexmage. That's not quite the one we're after, is it? I think I'll play out this Ancient Tomb. That way if we draw a Swamp we can cast the Ill-Gotten Gains next turn. Tiger means there's not many decks that run Tiger that are... Okay, so we're looking at a Jund deck. So if we can draw a Swamp here, we can probably win the game. Orcish Bowmasters. That's not the one we wanted. But we can play instant speed here. So we can decide if we want to Orcish Bowmasters or if we want to just copy our Swamp with our Thespian stage. And then we can Ill-Gotten Gains next turn. Right, Ancient Tombs. We're going to see something like... Okay, Name Sticker Goblin. That's pretty good. Please hit 4. 6. Uh-oh, Spaghetti-A's. Muxus. How bad is this going to be? Yeah, us bricking on not hitting that Swamp is going to cost us here, I think. Munitions Expert, a Lackey, another Sticker Goblin. Alright, so Ill-Gotten Gains isn't really going to do enough now. So our plan to victory here is probably to copy our Ancient Tomb with our Thespian stage and draw into a... Yeah, if we copy the Ancient Tomb and draw into Helm of Obedience, then we win the game. So I think that's a good line to take, considering this is probably going to kill us. Opposition Agent, does that do anything for us here? If we... So we now have to take 2 life for our Ancient Tomb, which is obviously a little bit awkward. But we might be able to survive a turn and get another draw step using our Orcish Bowmasters, just by chump blocking. So we get to chump block Muxus and kill a Lackey. It'll cost us 2 life, but I can live with that. Alright, we're supposed to do this now, so that we can reduce the size the Muxus grows to in case something goes wrong. Goodbye, Lackey. So we block here. We take 2, 4, 5. And we can chump block next turn. I think that's acceptable. So looking at sort of Jund Goblins. So giving ourselves another draw step to draw Helm of Obedience. What is this? 5 mana. A Fury. Okay. So we do still have a chump blocker and opposition agent, but I think we're dead off of that, right? Because the Fury is going to kill us. Because we can't block the Fury and the Muxus. So we've got one more draw step. Come on, deck. Give us that I win button. That is not the I win button we were looking for. Playing this out will kill us, so let's just concede and not show any more cards. So if we'd have drawn a Swamp, the turn where we didn't draw the Swamp, we would have easily won this game because we'd have mind twisted our opponent. Alright. Begin sideboarding. Well, this is a removal matchup, so we'll bring in Sheoldred's Edict. We will also bring in Plague Engineer. I'm not too interested in the Chalice of the Voids here. And that gives us 4 more to cut. The Ill-Gotten Gains is unlikely to be... Like, we had a spot where it was quite good there, but it's unlikely to be that good as a general rule. Opposition Agent is great here. Leyline the Void, not so hot. But we kind of still want some Leylines for our combo. We could always just trim on the Leylines and put in some HELM'S. And try and disrupt our opponent that way. Maybe we'll trim a couple of Helm's as well. Just try and take our opponents. So Chalice isn't great when they're a deck that runs Chalice of the Void. Sorry, not Chalice of the Void. Cavern of Souls, so they can get around our Chalice of the Void. Goblins is a much stronger deck than it was last time I played this. But times change, and you've got to change with them. So let's hopefully get a win on the board. Would be nice. Alright, so we're on the play. We have a turn 2 2020. against their deck, they're probably not going to be able to remove that. So I'm feeling okay with this spot. Let's play the Urborg. They've seen the Thespian stage, so they are probably anticipating Dark Depths. There is a Cavern of Souls. So, good reason why Chalice is bad. Okay. Right, here's our Hexmage. We're going to do this now because we've already seen Wasteland from our opponent. Can you beat a 2020 on turn 2? Now, the answer might be yes. If they can put a Sticker Goblin into play right now, that's certainly possible. Alright, they can't. Excellent. Alright, let's just go back in. Hand is a little slow. I think we can do better. Turn 2 Bowmasters might be too slow, but our deck doesn't have as much acceleration as it once did. I'm not a massive fan of all these Dark Depths in our hand. But Bowmasters into Engineer is an okay curve, so I'm going to take that. Now, we do need to draw a land in order to deploy that, and we're hoping that our opponent doesn't play Lackey this turn, because we don't have an answer for Lackey right now. Ether Vial. Okay, that's better for us. Like, it's not amazing for us, but it's better than a Lackey. Alright, if we find another land, then we should be able to win this game by just chaining Plague Engineers, and they never get to keep anything on the board. If we have 2, then Sticker Goblin never makes mana. So, an Ancient Tomb would be a good draw here. Battlecry Goblin. That's a fine creature. An Orcish Bowmaster. Alright, still not finding that land we'd require. We can kill this Battlecry Goblin using Orcish Bowmaster, ping it, and then block it with the token. Which is probably what we're going to do. If we don't draw a land, then we can just deploy another Bowmasters next turn, so we at least have something going on. Let's make it go. Just ping this guy. Let's go blocks. If we can get this trade off, that'd be excellent. Oh, we did. Alright, that's quite a big hit for us there. Land, 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 land. It is a land. I will take it. Let's name Goblin. I'm not going to take my Bowmasters into an Ether Vial. Especially when we can just play another Engineer next turn. Or we can make a 2020. But I think the Engineer is the safer play. We have seen Fury out of our opponent though. So maybe we're inclined to do something about that. There is a Sticker Goblin. So this is why I wanted to get the double Engineer going. Oh, I only hit 4, so that's not amazing. Fury. Alright. My opponent's got 2 cards left here. I think we are on Make a Dark Depths now. We've got 2 cards. Let's just make the 2020. Well, they can't. Oh, what is this? This is Sheoldred's Edict. I'm just fetching to thin, I suppose. Can you beat 2020? 4. Is this going to be Ringleader to try and draw into something? It is. Have they got the Bounce Goblin? They have a Kiki-Jiki. They can't deploy the Kiki-Jiki just yet. Yeah, we got there. So that's what I mean about this deck. We can just kind of steal wins. We can play, like, not the best fair game in the world. We can play a reasonable fair game. Like, the cards we had in hand are pretty good in this matchup. We've sideboarded well. We can probably handle their stuff a little bit, but they're probably going to end up going over top of us at some point. But we do just have an I win button where we have 2, and that was a pretty good one. All right, 1-0. Let's go to round 2. Yeah, this hand definitely plays. So we can have a turn 1 Chalice. We also shut off their graveyard, and then we are already working towards our combo. And we've already got 2 kills with Merit Lage this league, so we're already having a great time. So we can play Opposition Agent or Bowmasters next turn. Oh wow. They scoop to Leyline and Chalice. That's interesting. They could be, like, it's possible they're a Delver deck. Scooping to Leyline and Chalice. I am interested in him to Tourach as an option. But honestly, I think it would be a bit awkward to sideboard not knowing what your opponent's playing. Leyline plus Chalice. So that does make me think Reanimator, where we might want some Sheoldred's Edict type effects. I think we just go back in and get more information. Like, our deck runs pretty smoothly for the most part, main deck wise. Well, they scooped to these things before, right? So let's make them scoop again. Alright, so they might be Delver. They are Delver. Okay, right. Not a big fan of the Ancient Tomb, but I think this is worth doing. I'm going to build up to an 8 ill-gotten gains and see if we can mind twist our opponent before they kill us. Alternatively, we are not too far away from either combo. It's going to be hard for them to put additional pressure on because they're not going to be able to fill their graveyard for Murktide or anything like that. So we'll play out the swamp and pass. So they can't get a big channeler, they can't get a Murktide. They could have Seek the Beast here if they're playing the Questing Druid build. Alright, they're not. They're playing Orcish Bowmasters here. Nope, no Bowmasters. I don't know why you fetch then. I think you wait to see what the card is and see if you want it, then fetch. Alright, a Wasteland. That's fine. We've got more Ancient Tombs where that came from. But depending on what we draw, depends on what we play here. There's a Bowmasters, sure. Now, just casting Ill-Gotten Gains and Mind Twisting them is not going to win us the game. We're going to need to find something else to go with that. But this Delver not flipping is good news for us. Interesting. Let me play out the swamp here. Still no flip. Interesting. So this time we can cast Ill-Gotten Gains. And if it resolves, then great. If it doesn't resolve, it gets a counter spell out of our opponent. We'll probably pick these 3 cards back up. Or maybe we'll pick up this Ancient Tomb instead of the second swamp, the third swamp. So we can definitely Helm of Obedience next turn. But if this resolves, our opponent's going to have a pretty bad time. They can bash out for 3, 4, 5. And then we can kill them the next turn. Petty Theft. Okay. So now we get to see what they're bringing back though. So I would like the Dauthi Voidwalker here. The Helm of Obedience. And... I don't really have anything going on here. But apart from the pressure they have in play. So if we get an Ancient Tomb, then we can just get a swamp here, right? Because we need to play the Dauthi. Okay, so we know what our opponent has in hand. Okay, this Delver not flipping is huge for us. They played a land, so we know what they drew for turn. They have a Bauble. Okay, a swamp. We could play out the Helm here, but that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that could cost us here. So I think we play out the Dauthi. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so they need this Brazen Borrower to deal us damage here, right? If the Delver flips, we lose, I think, right? So they're going to use the Bauble to try and flip the Delver here. I think our opponent has us, but the next game is going to be way better for us because we know what we're playing against now. We can board in all of our removal. So we don't have to worry about this sort of pressure. Surely they haven't missed. They have missed again. Okay, now the problem we have is our life total is not high enough. This Wasteland doesn't matter because we can't tap our Ancient Tomb anyway. We can't block because of Shadow. This will put us to 1, so we need to draw... What do we need to draw here? A card that's not in our deck. A Vampire Hexmage. What does that do? That doesn't do enough here. We can get a Wasteland. No, we're just dead. Alright. But we get to sideboard way better now. So we can board in a bunch of removal. Like this. Opposition Agent I do not like in Delver matchups. So that can go. Sheoldred is nice. The Leyline is nice. I don't think we need Ill-Gotten Gains. They're not going to have that many cards in hand. And then what are we looking at? The last cuts. Maybe we can trim a Helm here. And maybe a Dark Depths. Let's go a little bit lower on some of the combo bits. Now if we deal with their graveyard and get a Plague Engineer down, it's going to buy us an awful lot of time. This hand could be a trap. I do like the basics though. I think we're going to roll with it. So we can play the Chalice on 2 and then play the Hexmage and the Depths on the same turn. We could be really cheeky and play the Depths and try and draw into an Urborg. Don't think our opponent's seen any of our Dark Depths side of our deck yet. Although Brazen Borrower is probably going to be their tool against either side. Right, so just play out a nice and friendly swamp. We can play Chalice to stop baubles, but I don't think that's worth doing. We can put it on 1 and it'll have a much more impactful impact on the game, I suppose. Alright, so I played a Bloodstone Mire. They cracked it for a Volcanic Island. Now they've got a Delver's Secrets. Is this worth you counterspelling opponent? If they daze this, they're a lot less likely to... Alright, just a Force Negation. I was going to say, if they daze this, they're a lot less likely to play a Wasteland next turn. Let's see if we can dodge the flip. We dodged a lot of flips in the last game, so... Right, so now they have a daze that we know about. And a wasteland. Alright, that's not ideal for us. Gonna need some help here. Alright, so we'll play this one out. I guess we play out the Hexmage around a days here. Might as well play around the thing we know. And if they wasteland our Thespian stage, we can just play the Dark Depths next turn. So they might hold on to this wasteland. I just want to lightning bolt that. That's a lightning bolt that's not going at our face. Yep. The Delver beatdown continues. It's still a human, isn't it? So we could play a Plague Engineer here. Or do I think we need this Hexmage? Let's go for the Hexmage. Let's see what happens here. So I can play this Dark Depths out. If our opponent wastelands our Dark Depths, we make a 20/20. But they could lightning bolt our creature. And then next turn, we can do both. So we can beat a single wasteland to make a 20/20. Alright, they have a second wasteland. That's less good for us. Alright. I'm just going to wasteland both of our things now. They did not. Alright, let's play a Plague Engineer. Next turn we can play the Sheoldred. And if it resolves, it should be enough to keep us in this game. Force of Will pitching the days. Okay. Alright, we'll go to tax. The lifestyle is not going to hurt itself. Not much anyway. So, what are you doing with those wastelands over there? We can still cast Sheoldred next turn, just not around a days if they wasteland us. We're not going to burn our Hexmage for this, because they have the second wasteland. If they leave us with a stage, we at least get to play Sheoldred around a days. Opponent's got 3 cards in hand. It's not going to be a lot of removal in their deck that deals with the Sheoldred. Possibly Unholy Heat, but that's not going to be live yet. Another Delver. That's why they didn't want us to have the Plague Engineer. Okay, so we can't play around days if we want to put the Sheoldred into play. And I think we need to put the Sheoldred into play. Oh, Plague Engineer. That's a nice one there. Human, please. Okay, so now we're only taking 2 from this Delver. And then if we draw a land, we can play Sheoldred around a days. Right, you ponder away, opponent. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. Coming in for 2. Let's attack. Can we afford to play around days right now? I don't think we can. Oh wow, we're just in. Excellent. Sheoldred the Game Ender. Very nice. So they need 2 lightning bolts here. 1 for Plague Engineer, 1 for our face. And then bash for 3. Or, you know, a removal spell and a lightning bolt. But I think if they had a lightning bolt, they would have cracked it off on this Plague Engineer beforehand. Vampire Hexmage can remove all the counters from a Murktide as well, which is a nice little trick. So if they play a Murktide here, we can jam with our Sheoldred. And if they block with the Murktide, we strip all the counters off, and then Sheoldred eats the Murktide and lives, which is good, as you can probably imagine. Alright, they're doing the play that we thought they might. They're still going to be bashing. Now, considering what removal we might have, I think, at this point. So obviously if we remove the Murktide, we just crash for lethal. Alright, we gain some life here. Let's just get this into play. I guess if they double block here, so if we send everything, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this also burns for another 2 next turn. Yeah, this seems fine. Like, they can double block and kill this, but they'll take 4 and have no creatures left. Let's see what they go for. They try and trade off the Murktide, and we... Okay, so they're just going to go for the Hexmage here. This is going to be 6 though. Alright, so they're going to block there. Then we're going to remove the counters from the Murktide, so it's just smaller, because our Hexmage is dying anyway. We force through 2 points. We kill one of their guys. They're left with a 3/3. Alright. So they're going to be going to 3 now. They can only bash us for 3 this turn. They have no instants or sorcery in their graveyard to remove in any way, shape or form due to our Leyline. I played a Wasteland. Alright, they're coming in for the damages. They got 2 lightning bolts. The last 2 cards. If we put this on 2, they can't Brazen Borrower, but they'll just Brazen Borrower in response. I think we're attacking here. Because we can redeploy the Sheoldred if they bounce it. If they bounce the Sheoldred, then we can replay the Sheoldred around a days, and they'll die in their upkeep. Yeah, alright. So take 2 here, go to 1. If they have a daze, it's not going to be good enough. I Brainstorm. Not sure what single card with 0 mana is going to help you here. All right, we are 2-0. Not too shabby. The concession in the game one definitely made me... I did mention that they could be Delver, but it definitely made me think that we could be looking at something more akin to Reanimator, so we didn't board properly. We lost a game where we didn't get to board. So that was actually a very wise move from our opponent if they don't think they come back from there. Concealing information can have a real big impact on sideboarding. All right, we're 2-0. Let's go to round 3. A turn 3 2020, but we're very cold to Wasteland. We don't get to cast a lot of our spells. I don't think this is good enough. Alright, this is better. This gets to play Magic the Gathering. I think we throw back the Ill-Gotten Gains here. And we can play good spells. I think our opponent is a Grixis control player, which is going to be a horrible matchup. Okay. A Dauthi Voidwalker. I think Bowmasters is probably the best thing, but we don't want to be the first person to play a Bowmasters. Baleful Strix. Alright. That's a nice thing to cast Bowmasters in response to. But sadly, we didn't get that opportunity. Let's play this out. We have a question of, do we just play the Bowmasters now and take a bit of a card? Or do we play something like a Voidwalker, which can just get in underneath them? I quite like that. We don't, like I said, we don't want to play the first Bowmasters. We want to play the second Bowmasters, so we can snipe down their Bowmasters or whatever. We don't want their Bowmasters to just take ours out, because it's going to be a really powerful tool to leverage in this map. So our opponent can have things like Colligan's Command that can just hit our Dauthi and take out an Urborg, and that's going to be awkward. Molten Collapse. Same but different. So I'm probably going to do some sort of brainstorm trick over there. Right, we have an Opposition Agent and a Bowmaster. Because we have both, we're going to hold up both and then cast whichever one is relevant when the time comes. Speaking of relevant, let's go for it. Now they can have their own Bowmasters here. They've left open the mana for it. And we're getting a full-on Force of Will out of it. That's pretty good. Bowmasters became a hymn to Tourach. I'm okay with that. Right, just going to continue to get beaten down by this little 1-1. Would I rather have an Opposition Agent here or a Leyline of the Void? That's an interesting question. We're more likely to double spell if we play the Leyline, but the Leyline is quite low impact. I think we're gonna run out of the Leyline because we've got the time and space to maneuver in. We know our opponent is a Snapcaster Mystic Confluence deck. Sorry, not Mystic Confluence. Mystic Sanctuary. Sorry. So we know that they're using their graveyard. Right, so there's the Bowmasters. We might be able to flash in an Opposition Agent and kill the Bowmasters. We don't really want to try and block the token, because if they have another Bowmasters, then trading with the token is not that exciting. Sure, another little Strix. 3 points a turn is going to start adding up though, so we need to do something about the situation we're in. That's something, isn't it? Let's play a Hexmage. And then we can flash in a little surprise for them. Our opponent is not a Daze deck, so we can use... right, they're just doing this. So we will remove all counters from the York Army token. So I traded their one card for our one card for 1.5 of their cards. That's acceptable. Let's try for an Oppo Agent. Now, our opponent is favouring this matchup. They've got a lot more grinding resources. Cling to Dust, sure. And they want to crack their Bloodstone Mire if nothing else. Although they can still tap for black mana. Alright, so they drew a Force and they're pitching a Snapcaster, sure. Sheoldred's probably nice here. Chalice of the Void. This stops them doing cantrips. Stops them lightning bolting our face, which could be a way of closing the game a little bit quicker than you would expect. Right, here comes a little crunch. Alright. Just play another Leyline out so that it's harder for them to bounce it if we draw the Helm of Obedience. Right, this is going to be a tough assignment, I would say. Thespian stage. Okay, our opponent doesn't run Wastelands, if I remember rightly. But if we draw a Dark Depths next turn, we are still dead. Right? Because they attack us for 3, we make a 20-20, we block one guy, we take 2, and go down to 0. That's not going to do it for us, I'm afraid. Alright. So, this matchup. What tools do we want? The Monarch is an interesting thing to introduce into this game. For sure. I don't really like the Sheoldred's Edicts because they have lots of little rubbish guys. But Plague Engineer seems nice, and the Hymn to Tourach to allow us to fight on a 2-for-1 basis is quite tasty. Ill-Gotten Gains, if we can resolve that, is aces. I'm not a big lover of Opposition Agent here. Like, it can do some stuff, but I don't think it's where I want to be. At least I was trying to find 4 cuts. I think we'll trim a Helm and a Depths. Maybe we don't need all of these Plague Engineers. I don't think we can fit in these Castle Locthwains, which makes me start... Sorry, not Castle. Court of Locthwain, which makes me wonder why they're in the deck to an extent. How are they going to handle a Dark Depths? It's probably going to be bounce, maybe sacrifice effects. They do use their graveyard as a resource. I'm going to trim another Helm. We'll try something like this. Sure, we're on the play. We can play Dauthi into Bowboys. It's acceptable. We have the Castle Locthwain to actually draw some cards later on. Thoughtseize. So they took our Orcish Bowmasters, which is a pretty reasonable take, to be honest. But they had 2 things to choose from at the end of the day. Alright, so we have lots of ways of making a 2020, which I imagine is pretty reasonable against the Grixis deck. So we shut off their graveyard as a thing for now. Obviously, killing creatures is something their deck is very adept at doing. I think I've seen this person post some of their 5-0 wins on Twitter with their Grixis control deck. That's why I was pretty sure I knew what they were on from the start. Not that it's helped us in any way. Orcish Bowmasters. I don't think we want to play this out into their Bowmasters. But if they play a cantrip, then I think we're inclined to play it. Let's get Hexmage going. We already have the Thespian stage, and they're not a wasteland deck, so we can afford to play their Hexmage just to beat down with. If they play something like a Narset, we might be able to kill it. I don't remember if they do play a Narset, or even a Dak Faden is pretty good in these decks with Orcish Bowmaster. They're just fetching around Opposition Agent, perhaps. Colligan's Command. Let's get rid of the Leyline. It makes it easier to draw cards with Castle Locthwain, because we don't have this 4-drop stinking up our hand. So they're playing Court of Locthwain. Okay. See if our Bowmasters that we've sandbagged all this while is going to do some work for us here. It might do. We're going to steal the Monarch as well. See, the reason I think this is risky against us is the same reason I think it's risky for us against them with it. Right, let's just go to tax. I don't really want to play out this Urborg that can help them cast spells. So we're going to play out the Ancient Tomb. Alright, now we are the Monarch. It's pretty exciting. A Hexmage. Alright, they can play some cards off the top of our library. They have a Helm of Obedience. Not a very exciting one. Unless they've got some Dauthi Voidwalker type stuff of their own. Right, let's go to tax. We'll keep the pressure on. If they play a Snapcaster Mage, you can ping us Bowboys. Petty Theft. Let's jam some more threat down. Sudden Edict. Sacrifice that creature. There's Urborg out. We'll draw a free card. Ooh, another nice one. They have a Dark Depths. They could do our own combo against us here. Maybe we do want the Court of Locthwain. Would you like a Bowmasters? They're brainstorming in response to the Bowmasters. So maybe they can find a Bowmasters of their own. Right, it feels like they're going to Bowmasters. Okay, they've got a Lightning Bolt. They've kind of spent their turn a bit there, though. Let's go to attacks. Get some damage in. Let's try a Dauthi Voidwalker. How do you feel about that? Let's try Sheoldred. How do you feel about that? That's a brainstorm. Alright, they've had enough. So, Court of Locthwain. That felt really good on our side of the board. I wanted to be the one to showcase it, and we kind of did, but are we supposed to be boarding that in? If they can get the Monarch and just clear our creature, though, we're in such a bad state. And we're kind of boarding out like a guy that does something pretty much in order to do that. I don't think we're supposed to do that. I think we're supposed to go in like this. If we can draw a second land, I like this one, but I don't think we can keep a one-lander. Alright, we can mess with our opponent's hand a fair bit here. I'm not too into the Ill-Gotten Gains right now. That does give our opponent just some more cards. And we're just going to be trying to remove our opponent's cards here. Sure, just a casual little ponder. Let's trade up in resources for a little bit. Okay. This is great. Our opponent doesn't run free counters apart from pitch counters, so they've got no dazes in their deck. Oh, we're just in. So no Cantrips for you. Now, we know they run Colligan's Command in their deck, so... Oh, look at this. With the curve of the Urborg is so sweet as well. How do you like them apples? Orcish Bowmasters and Plague Engineer. Pretty happy to see those in the bin. Spells I can actually cast. Next turn, we're going to hymn them again, unless we draw something that changes our outlook. But I suspect we're probably just okay hymning. There could be a borrower now for the Chalice, and then they can spend a turn cantripping. Okay, so they're doing exactly what I said they would. So this is going to be playing out their cantrips. Yep. Thoughtseize. So they're going to take our Chalice, I guess. They could take our hymn. No, they're taking the hymn. That scares them more. Let's play this out. So this will shut Lightning Bolt off as an option, so I'm okay playing this out. We only have 3 depths left in the deck. We do need to beat down to win this game at some point. Orcish Bowmasters, sure. So they're not going to get a guy, because we're going to sack the Hexmage, so the Bowmasters doesn't trigger. So just get a 1-1 here. But we're going to draw Dark Depths now. No, okay. Alright, we're now in the stage where we need to actually find something here. But we've got some Plague Engineers, we've got Bowmasters of our own, which would be excellent. So we've got some nice draws. Sheoldred is always welcome. I'll play this Ancient Tomb with the art they know about. Alright, this might just be a repeat of game 1, where they just slowly grind us down with these little guys and we're struggling to get anything going. We don't really want to shut off Bowmasters or anything. I don't think we play this Chalice out, as weird as that is. Or we could play another 1-on-1. That way they can't really get rid of it. We could play it on 3 to stop the borrower, but then they just cast a borrower in response. So we're not really getting. So they're going to play borrower at end of turn. And they're going to be beaten down for 5. That's quite a lot of damage. Kind of like Nightclubber would be great here, whatever it's called. The one that -1s all their guys. Not a thing we have in our deck, but it's an interesting one to think about. Hymn to Tourach. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. I guess we'll take some of them. They got 5 cards in hand, sorry. So we'll take 2 of them. 2 Brainstorms. There's a swing and a miss right there. Perhaps their Ancient Tomb. So it makes it easier to draw a Locthwain in case that's the thing we want to do. Unlikely. Because if we draw a Locthwain and we draw, we're probably dead. But yes, we're dead on their next turn. So we need to find something here. Orcish Bowmasters. That's pretty good. Swamp from our opponents. If we resolve this Bowmasters, we might be okay. We did not resolve the Bowmasters. Nimble Obstructionist. Interesting. Yep, I did say this matchup was going to be tough, and we couldn't quite get over the line there. The one we won was because they basically gave us the Monarch for free. But this is always going to be difficult. They've got cheap, effective removal for our guys, counterspell for our combo. They can break things up quite nicely. It's not really a matchup I would like to play. And because they're like not Delver and stuff, the Chalices on 1 don't shut them off as much as it does against some decks. Alright, we are 2-1. Let's go to round 4.
If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel. A mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.
Our hand for this round is already a mulligan because we have double Urborg, so I think we're going to throw it back. We have 2 draw steps to draw a mana source here. 24, so that's more than 1 in 3. Yuck. I think I will keep this reluctantly. We're going to throw away the Hexmage, I think, here. Maybe we can get a free win off of this Chalice. I wouldn't keep this on the play, but I think on the draw, with 2 draw steps to hit a mana source. Alright. A Lotus Petal. What flavour of Lotus Petal deck are you? Lotus Petal into Ponder. Is that the Epic Storm? I chose not to shuffle. This feels like a Chalice on 0. I guess they could be Sneak and Show. But if they play any mana source here, they should give the game away a little bit. Another Lotus Petal, okay. A Chrome Mox, okay. So we are looking at some sort of Storm combo. Gamble. Lion's Eye Diamond. It's going to be like Riddler. I think the Chalice for 1 is better than the Chalice for 0 is better than Chalice for 1 here. And then next turn we can play out a Bowmasters, which is very good against Riddler style decks that draw a lot of cards. A Dark Ritual. This could be a Beseech for something like Song of Creation. Burning Wish. Are they cracking this LED in response? This could be an Ad Nauseam line. That's going to be very hard. They're going to need to have land plus Dark Ritual. This could just be a small amount of goblins. But we've got that covered with Bowmasters. Empty the Warrens. Okay, so it's a small goblin line. Right, so this isn't too much. I'd like to draw a land that isn't an ancient... A land that... It's a basic swamp. That's what I like. Because then we don't have to take any damage from this. Because every point matters from this point onwards. It's not what I asked for, but I will take it. So we can take 4 this turn. I think we take the full 5. And then next turn we have Orc army tokens that can block and survive. Certainly not a risk-free strategy. I'd love to find a mana source we have to tap our ancient tomb. Oh, okay. We could just win the game instead. Big fan of winning the game. Alright. Our annoying pieces for our opponent's deck got us there. So, things that are useful in this matchup. Hymn to Tourach. And Plague Engineers. Because goblins are goblins. And our opponent's more likely to go into an early goblin line if they see that we've got all these horrible permanents that are going to jam them up. So, I think Ill-Gotten Gains is going to be too slow a lot of the time. 2020 can be fast enough. If they have Wishful Talismans, we can remove their counters. I think that's a reasonable thing. We're probably trimming on a Dark Depths here. And we don't really need to win the game a lot of the time, if that makes sense. We just kind of need to not lose the game. So we kind of rely on our prisony pieces here. I do still like having a Helm and a Depths and a Helm in the deck. But this way we're unlikely to get jammed up by drawing them. This is no good. Speaking of not getting jammed up by drawing them, here is our Dark Depths. Right, let's have a mulligan. This hand is very slow. This hand is also slow. This hand is a keepable. So we get rid of Hexmage and Hexmage. We want to be able to do this and this, which means we probably throw back the swamp here. So the plan is turn 1, Chalice for 0. Turn 2, Plague Engineer. Now we might just get a whole new 7 this turn with like Echo of Eons. There is a Lotus Petal. Underground Sea, Ponder. There is an argument for playing the Chalice on 1 to stop Ponder, Brainstorm, and Dark Ritual. And Gamble that we've seen from our opponent's deck. Alright, we're probably losing this Chalice. And they know that they don't need to go into an Empty the Warrens line. So we are quite far behind now. Alright, Thoughtseize bug, I guess. Now this could be the wrong number. They might have a bunch of zeros. But if they had more zeros in hand, I think they might have been inclined to play them out. Just because they know we're running the Chalice and we put it on 0 last time. Alright. Over to us. We're going to put a threat on the board. So I'm going to joke with our opponent there because I'm fully aware we got lucky to draw that Chalice off the top there. And I have no qualms about admitting it. Alright. So they got Chromox. Beseech the Mirror. So they might have an answer to this at end step. Have a little swing. They can also get like Volcanics that will be Grixis Trilands because of our Urborg, which might be useful for them. Play this out. And use my Urborg to play this Leyline. Just shutting off all the angles. So they're never going to get Threshold for any Cabal Rituals they may have. They can't do any Gaia's Will lines whilst the Leyline's in play. Well, they can if they just need to cast those cards that are in the graveyard right now. That seems unlikely to be where they want to go with that. If we give our opponent enough time, they will break out of this. Let's disrupt them a little bit. Alright, we've got Mr. Rainforest being cracked here. They've got an answer to something, they might fire it off now. Is this an Abrupt Decay? Beseiju Who Endures. Okay. Yes, I would like to get a Swamp out of my deck. We're going to take half of their hand with this. Alright, they're going to save the best cards using their Brainstorm. Veil of Summer, Echoing Truth. Alright. So they put their business spells on top. Over to us. A Castle Locthwain. We could find like another Helm's Tourach or something here. Lots of good options. A Hexmage. Sure, I will play that out. It doubles our clock. Alright, another Brainstorm. This gets them a little bit deeper. Imagine that Hexmage is a Bowmaster instead. Be lights out. Right, so now they have a fetch down to get rid of that Brainstorm. So they have one more draw step after this, which is, I imagine, when they'll try and go, unless they have a line that is deterministic now. Alright, feels like we're about to go. Dark Ritual, yep. Beseech the Mirror. Song of Creation. Alright. A Cabal Ritual. Drawing some cards. Can they keep going here? Right, so I'm going to discard their hand, end of turn. Orcish Bowmasters, please. Not an Orcish Bowmasters. Attack. Attacks for black. We will play this other Urborg out because we don't care about any other lands in our deck at this point. Yes, we do have a Hexmage, but that's kind of really lethal. Playing this out right now doesn't do anything. It means if they kill one of our guys, then we don't kill them next turn. But I think it's either our opponent wins on this next turn or not. Now, if that was a Bowmasters, then it'd just be lights out because Song of Creation will not get them there. Right, a land is all they drew. Oh, yeah, we got lucky with that thingies, with the Chalice draw, but it's in our deck to draw it. We boarded out a lot of the air so that we're just going to hit things that oppress our opponent, and we mulliganed for a decent hand, and we got there. So, all right, we are 3-1 going into the final rounds. We've locked in the positive record, possibly a 4-1 available. Let's see if we can grab that. All right, in the final round, we have a turn 1 Chalice on the play into a turn 3 Sheoldred. I think this is acceptable. We also have a good amount of mana here, so we can fix ourselves nicely. So we've got double black in basics, which can pay for a lot of our costs. And then we have the faster mana from the Ancient Tomb, so we can just jam our Helm of Obedience if we need to. Okay, Seat of the Synod. So our Chalice on 1 is useless in this matchup. Our Graveyard Shenanigans is pretty good, but we didn't draw that. Understood. Pretty good hits off the enemy there. Just play out the Swamp. If we knew what our opponent was playing, or if we were on the draw and dropped this Chalice to 0, this game looks very different. We can remove the counters from it using a Hexmage, which is something I would do, because I've just got this engine right now. I'm going to see a random card from our hand. We're going to drop 2 more artifacts and make a Kappa. Okay. I've seen Helm of Obedience. I thought cast. Alright, so they got a Mox Opal. Oh, sorry, I just had a cough and my voice has gone a little. Alright, I thought cast. We don't want them to have the mana to play a Metallic Rebuke. That's what we're trying to avoid. So they're going to draw 2 extra cards in our turn as well. Just pay 4 and play Sheoldred. If they don't have a Force of Will, this will be great. If they do have a Force of... Okay, we're in with the Sheoldred. That's not necessarily that easy for them to remove. They have like maybe 2 bounce spells in their deck. Well, like 1 Arterara, 1 Ether Spellbomb. So this would be quite good for us. It shuts down a lot of their engine. Obviously, they spent the last turn drawing cards. Now they're probably just going to be playing stuff. Patches, sure. Yep, they're going to keep growing their patches. This looks like Kappa Cannoneer. That certainly gets through the Sheoldred. Yeah, so we're just 1 too late with the Sheoldred. We didn't get to play it before their big setup turn where they draw the cards, and now they're just going to do stompy things. Yeah, that's a lot of power they've just deployed there. So we're going to need to find like a Dauthi Voidwalker, and then we're going to need to try and win with the Helm. We could do it with a Leyline as well, I suppose. Alright, you draw in with the Bauble, giving us some extra life there. An opposition agent that our opponent knows about. I think it's worth playing a Helm of Obedience here, because if our opponent doesn't kill us and we get the ability to play a Dauthi Voidwalker or Leyline. So we obviously play Dauthi Voidwalker and the thing next turn, but if we draw a Leyline, then that doesn't work out for us. We can trade our Sheoldred if we want to. We might not have much choice. We're not going to be able to trade it for the Cannoneer, which is probably going to kill us in 2 swings on its own anyway. Oh, the Patchwork Automaton only being a 4/4 is a little bit awkward for our opponent here. But I don't know why they didn't play in just an artifact from their graveyard with Emery. Yep, we can't block this. But we do get to draw a card and gain some life here. I think them not playing the artifact there, because the Patchwork could trade with our Sheoldred, which would be pretty good. I don't think this Mishra's Ball was going to be drawing any cards. Alright, deck. An Opposition Agent. Not really what we wanted right now, was it? So we can always spin the Helm of Obedience looking for a Thought Monitor to try and draw some cards and gain some life with the Sheoldred if our opponent's going to be doming us for 11 with his Cannoneer. We can just chump block with an Opposition Agent as well. Buy ourselves a little bit more life. Right, it's going to be up to 9. Drawing a card with Castle Locthwain, not ideal here. Thought Monitor. It's a pretty good one. So that's going to give them a 10/10 Cannoneer. But this is going to make them lose 4 life. But they just need 1 artifact to make their Cannoneer lethal. And there is that artifact. Alright. So now they're probably going to swing here. We got another Kappa. Okay. Also pretty good. Imagine if we'd have known and played our Chalice. So we kind of lost for being on the play, weirdly. So they're going to attack with the Kappa and the Patches. Right, so now we have to mill some cards and see if we hit a Thought Monitor here. How much is this actually? 14, that's fine. Alright, we didn't hit any of the things we needed. Alright, that was unfortunate, weirdly, being on the wrong side of the play draw, but it's acceptable. So I like Sheoldred's Edict here. They have a bunch of ward creatures. Let's get those out of here. Hand Disruption ends up being kind of awkward with the HELM'S. I think similar with the Urborg gains. Opposition Agent does a few things. It can stop their Urza Saga, but that's about it. But Urza Saga is a very potent tool. I think we can probably trim that though. We could play Plague Engineers just to trade with Patches, but I don't think that's quite where I want to be. We'll submit like this, make some 2020s. I'm okay with this. We shot off Emery, we shot off their card drawing, we have an answer for their Patches. This seems acceptable. And we can lead off with an Urborg so that our Hexmage is live for turn 2 if that's the thing we want to do. They're not going to be messing with our lands. That's not what 8 cast does. Or however many casts it is now. I think it's only 6 casts. Okay, a Saga. That's a pretty good one. With a Petal. And a Patches. And a Petal. A Dark Depths. This is play that in case we draw a Thespian stage. So we can Sheoldred's Edict this now. I think that's probably good. No more Patches. Because they have this artifact, we can't ping their token once they make it. The other option now is to hold it up in case they're doing like a draw lots of cards turn, then we can just use our Bowmasters. So this is a Saga going to tick down and get an Ether Spellbomb to deal with our Merit Lage. But we have the threat of it there all the time, which is kind of scary for our opponent. Pithing Needle. Probably going to name Vampire Hexmage. That's fine, we don't have one in hand anyway. Helm of Obedience, okay. That's what. I guess we are representing 2 different combos right now. And I suppose they got the other one covered with the needle, so it makes more sense to name that one. That's not how we're planning on winning this game. We're going to play out the Swamp. We're expecting them to get the Ether Spellbomb, so playing out the Hexmage isn't actually that useful. But maybe we can Sheoldred afterwards, so we can play the Bowmasters in response to some sort of draw spell. Just making a little friend. Good. If they don't go for the Spellbomb here, then we can just deploy the 2020. And they've shown us they don't necessarily have the mana to play for an Ottawa. Yep, so there's the Spellbomb. Right, let's just get Bowmasters down. So stop them drawing in future. Oh, wow. Getting force out for this. Alright, well, we've got a Sheoldred that we can dump in their lap instead. Oh, we've got a Sheoldred's Edict. That's pretty nice. That doesn't take them off Metalcraft, though, which is what I really want to do. I think we'll just hold up the Sheoldred's Edict. I don't want to waste a Dark Depths like this. Because if we end up with another Hexmage, we can just bully our way through this Spellbomb. And we have their threat answered. Maybe we're supposed to take the opportunity to just put a Sheoldred into play, but they can just bounce it. But then I guess they bounce it, we kill their guy. They're going to find an artifact at some point, right? And turn on their metalcraft again. Sacrifice a creature token, please. No 4/4 for you. That also cost them a Lotus Petal earlier. So now we can just play out the Hexmage and start beating unless we draw a land for the Sheoldred. Ooh, a stage. That is interesting, isn't it? Alright, let's have big Sheoldred. They could do a Metallic Rebuke on this, but we're in an okay spot, I would say. Oh, they got Dismember. Sure. So we have two 2020s we can assemble now. Alright, Haywire Might. I don't think that's going to save you there. Alright. Once they spellbomb this, we can then just play the other one, and we're away. So their mana is spoken for in this turn cycle. Alright, they found another mana source. That's probably going to be helpful for them. A Thought Cast. Alright, they're starting to get some grease on the wheels and get things moving, which isn't what we want, really. But we've got a nice big 2020. It's brought along its sister. Ready to rock and roll with. Sure, an Urza's Bauble. They're going to know what the last card in our hand is. Yep, you can see our bit of mana we have. Yep, they're waiting to do it in our turn, so they've got more chance of drawing something to deal with the next one. Chalice of the Void. On 0, please. They already know what we have in hand, so we're just going to play out as well. No point keeping it in hand. So out comes either Spellbomb activation. Goodbye, Merit Lage. But also, hello, Merit Lage. So I have the mana for Otawara now. They're tapping off the mana for Otawara. Thoughtcast. Okay. So they're just trying to find something. Alright, we got a nice little win there. Do we want to do anything differently? Do we want opposition agents more than Helm of Obedience? At least a 3/3 split seems reasonable to me. I'm kind of down with boarding in some Plague Engineers on the draw. I can trade with Patches or a Construct. Let's grab a couple of those. Let's take out a Leyline. Take out one Leyline or two Leylines. I think that's enough. Still want to have Leylines because they're very good against our opponent. Yes, Bowmasters is excellent in this matchup. This hand is great. The one downside is casting Dauthi Voidwalker is going to be hard. We should have been on the draw for game 1. I think we win that on the draw 90% of the time with that Chalice. Alright, Patches. Okay. How big is Patches going to grow? Just the one grow. Okay. Another Swamp. That's a great draw for us. And we can decide if we need to be if we need to be Bowmastering or we need to be killing their Patches. It feels like we're going to be killing their Patches. The mana spoken for a couple of turns. Goodbye, Patches. Next turn we can do double Bowmasters or we can do Opposition Agent. Considering the Urza Saga, I'm kind of interested in having an Opposition Agent to shut that off. Dark Depths. Does that change anything at all here? I don't believe it does. This is going to be a 3/3, so there's no point trying to Bowmasters it. So we're just going to play a basic Swamp for now. And preserve our life total. Right, we're going to make them commit to the Urza Saga activation, I think. So let them get their Construct. It's a mistake letting them get the Construct actually, because now they can Metallic Rebuke. They haven't shown us Metallic Rebuke yet, though, so maybe they don't have it. Let's try and get them with the Agent. Dismember. Okay, they've expended half their life total, but they're probably just going to go get a Shadow Spear now. And that's going to be tough for us to beat. And another Saga. Yeah, I think we are coming to a close here. We could draw a Vampire Hexmage. That would work here. Oh my god. He's so good at this game, isn't he? Oh, don't do it. No, this is the Metallic Rebuke that we've been talking about all game. They finally had it. That's a real drag. So this is 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. It's not quite lethal. But if we tap our Ancient Tomb, it is. So I think the play here is play Dark Depths and then go. Oh, annoying they had that Rebuke, but Nothing we could do about the situation we put in there. Just the Urza Saga, the double Urza Saga hand is a bit tricky for us to beat. We're not a wasteland deck because we've got combo lands in our slot that would normally occupy by wastelands in the monoblack deck. A little bit awkward. Alright. So now they're going to gain 7 life here. But that's also going to be exactly lethal, right? Because they've had an artifact land off the top. Yep. We are bested, I'm afraid. The annoying thing is, for that round, in my opinion, is that if we went second, if we lost the die roll, I think we win that game just by the nature of having Chalice on 0, because their whole game plan in game 1 revolved around playing zeros, which is, you know, it's just one of the ways Magic works out sometimes, and you've got to have a laugh about it. Otherwise, you'll get driven mad. But yeah, 3-2. We were pretty close to having a 4-1. Not against the Grixis deck, but against the 8-cast. Felt like that was much more winnable than the Grixis matchup. Anyway, let's talk about Helm's Deep, the deck. So, a lot of my worries about the mana base were relatively unfounded because we have this big block of 16 black sources. That helps. Now, casting our spells wasn't that hard. What was difficult was casting them at an appropriate time sometimes. It felt like we needed fast mana in this deck, and Ancient Tomb on its own wasn't enough. So, how can we fix that? Well, we could play some Moxen. That's one option. We could play some Dark Rituals and then maybe start trimming on or like getting rid of our Chalice. But I do like how Chalice protects Marit Lage quite a lot. That does feel like a core component of the deck. So I think we're probably looking at adding in some more fast mana in the form of Mox, which means we're probably looking at getting rid of something like Ill-Gotten Gains. And like I said before, maybe we can trim a Thespian stage. So we could probably run 3 Chrome Mox here. We've got 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 black sources. That's probably enough to play 3 Moxen, 22 black cards. So I think that's probably enough. And, you know, spare Leylines can go underneath them. Like the Ill-Gotten Gains, like we could just be winning the game with Helm of Obedience, right? So I don't think Ill-Gotten Gains is good enough. It's a thing that maybe you want to have if you're in like a Beseech the Mirror style deck. Speaking of Beseech the Mirror, why are we not playing it? Firstly, our mana base has got a lot of non-basic lands in. So we've got this big chunk of swamps to kind of alleviate that pressure. And if we start chucking in a bunch of Vault of Whispers, then we're going to find ourselves in a little bit of trouble. But aside from that, we don't have the artifacts, right? This isn't an artifact-heavy deck. We've just got these Chalices, which isn't really something we want to throw away. So I don't think Beseech the Mirror is where I want to be. Also, Beseech the Mirror, it can find the other half of Leyline or Helm combo. Cool. That's nice. It can also find little bullets like Sheoldred or like Opposition Agent when that's relevant. Sure, that's fine. It can find you Hexmage and you need that. Also fine. But if you're trying to get your Dark Depths, then it's not really doing anything for you. Because, well, it's a 4 mana tutor Dark Depths to your hand, which is a lot of mana for an effect that isn't that great. And you've also, like, trying to sacrifice permanents in this deck is a lot. So most of the time you're going to be playing Diabolic Tutor with it. So I don't think that's where we want to be, in case you were curious. Now, there is a Beseech the Mirror deck that, a monoblack Beseech the Mirror deck I've built that is pretty good. It's not a Dark Depths deck, though. It's a Painter Storm deck that I played a few months back. I will be playing again in January, so don't worry. But I think some people just tunnel into cards because this card is good. So obviously Beseech the Mirror is a very good card. And they think, okay, yeah, we need to play this because we're playing black or whatever and we have some cool things to tutor for. But the problem with that is you have to build your deck in a way to leverage that card. And that kind of takes away from a lot of what this deck's trying to accomplish. So I don't think that's the way to go. So my recommendation, if you want to play this deck, is to put 3 Mox in the deck. That gives us the ability to make turn 1 Bowmasters and Chalice of the Void. So Chalice of the Void, then we have 7 different combinations, really. So we have any Ancient Tomb Chalice is a Chalice on 1. And then any Mox and land is a Chalice on 1. So we have a lot more ways of doing this. And sometimes we'll be able to cast a Bowmasters on 1. Now, maybe we can tweak some other numbers around and change things so that we can have 4 Mox and try and go that route. But again, that is taking away resource. I don't like having too many Mox in a deck like this. I think 3 is a good number. I think, like, you see 3 Mox Diamonds in quite a lot of the, like, Green-White X Depths decks. because I think 3 is a pretty good sweet spot where you're unlikely to draw multiples in your opening hands, so you're more likely to be able to have a keepable hand and have things to pitch to it and kind of get rolling that way. We could play Mox Diamond here if we wanted to, because we have 16 plus 12, so that's what, 28 lands? And then if we go down to 27 lands, so 27 lands is a reasonable amount of lands to play Mox Diamond. It lets us pitch things like Dark Depths when they're bad, like we don't have anything else going on with them, instead of just having them rot away in our hand. Maybe that's better than a Chromox. Maybe it should be a split of like 2 and 1, but in which order, I don't know. These are the things I'm thinking about for the future. I will probably play this deck again at some point. I think it's feeling pretty reasonable as a thing we can do. Like, you do just say no to some decks. I just think we need to speed it up a little bit. And whether we go into like Dark Rituals to do that. Like, what does Dark Ritual do for us a lot of the time? It adds +1 mana. It's basically a glorified Lotus Petal for us a lot of the time, right? Because what are we going to be ramping out on turn... Well, on turn 1, it's a Lotus Petal. Because what are we going to be ramping out on turn 1? A Dauthi Voidwalker or a Bowmaster, for the most part, or a Chalice. Sometimes an opposition agent, so it will get us that 2 mana. But generally, you know, most of the things we can play would be just a 2-drop. Now, Dark Ritual on turn 2 allows us to play Sheoldred on turn 2. But we only have 2 Sheoldreds. It also does allow us to play Helm of Obedience. If we already have a Leyline in play, that can be pretty good. So it's not without merit. But I will say, if we're playing like a Chalice on 1 and then have the Leyline, that becomes a really awkward scenario. So I don't think we want the Dark Rituals. I think we just want some Moxen. Alright. Main deck, spoken about. Sideboard, cards are all fine. They did what they were supposed to do. Apart from Court of Locthwain. Now, we did see it in a game, and it was very good for us. But it wasn't our copy of it. Which kind of shows you the double-edged nature of this sometimes. The Monarch is a very tricky thing to bring into a game state. You have to be sure that you can protect it. Now, we can always just take cards from our opponent. Using, you know, the other ability is still going to be working. Even if we don't have the Monarch, we can still draw cards from our opponent's deck. And that is quite a powerful thing to be doing. But I'm not entirely sure. Like, when we played that matchup, we didn't really want to bring it in. Because the control decks are now running things like Bowmasters, it becomes kind of awkward. Now, in the non-black control decks, their main creatures are Uro and 4 Theolingus tokens, right? So, if they have 4 Theolingus tokens, they're getting the Monarch anyway. So, I think that's probably a matchup where this is going to be okay, because we can just play it and start exiling cards from their library. And, you know, if they get 4 Theolingus to challenge it, then we're going to lose the Monarch anyway, and they were going to get the Monarch, so it doesn't really matter. And if it's an Uro, maybe we can try and block that or deal with it in some fashion through edicts and that, like, sort of angle. And we have a lot of Graveyard Hate, which shuts off Uro as well. So I think this card is going to be good for, like, the sort of Bant plus other stuff. Like, maybe the 5-color control decks. You see less of the Bant stuff like Hot Bant and Dark Bant. It's more just 4-color, 5-color control with Leyline bindings and just lots of removal and answers. So I think this card is going to be better in that matchup. So I'm probably going to test it again next time as well. Alright, I think we're done for today. I hope you enjoyed Return to Helm's Deep. It's been a hot minute since I played this deck, but it is quite a fun one. You do get to just say, oops, I win. We very nearly did in that last round, but they had the Metallic Rebuke for the Hexmage at the last minute, which, you know, it happens. Sometimes you're the one who draws the nuts and gets there, and sometimes your opponent is, and that's magic, and you got to embrace it. So yeah, one more day down on our December. We're probably getting close to halfway through now. But it still means we've got plenty of weird and wonderful bits of spice to play. So I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know if you are. Let me know if there's any really weird and wonderful Dark Depths decks that you have that I've still got time to record with this month. And obviously, like and subscribe. It really does help. Okay, we are done. Thank you so much for watching and joining me for another adventure in December. And goodbye.